First agenda on the, first item on the agenda tonight, consider approving meetings from held on June 12th.
I make a motion, we approve the June 12th and the June 18 minutes.
Move second, all in favor? This next item is to meet the First Park Executive Director, Mr. Brad Jackson. Brad, how are you? I'm sorry to be
Fine,
late.
thank you. Hi, Matt. Hi, I just wanted to just spend a few minutes to introduce myself and to say hello. We'll be, I guess, engaged quite decisively going forward in the future. This will not be the last time you see me, I assure you. I want to first and foremost thank you for your support to First Park now and going forward. I want you to appreciate that I respect the client relationship. The 24 towns are the client of First Park, and I am here first and foremost to make sure that we service your needs. What we are doing at First Park is a little bit different. I just want to quickly explain where we are and where we're going. That is essentially a function of my background. I've been involved in community economic development for 25 years. As I told the board and Peter, I've done everything from Afghanistan to Woodstock and just about everything in between. And I learned rather early from an expert that networking is more effective than marketing. So what we're doing to move forward with filling the park is beginning a relationship with a few enablers that will allow me to get in front of C-level decision makers, C being CEOs, CFOs, CIOs, and to tell our story. I believe that is the most effective way to basically get to our end state. I believe I'm here to hook them, and the community is here to land them. Just recently, 3 weeks ago, we brought our first leader to the park that looks favorable. We had a reception at Colby. The turnout was phenomenal, and I want to thank the chamber for putting that together. But we did a good job as a community in selling the region in First Park. We won't know for a few more months as to whether they're coming this way. It'll be a few more years by the time they break ground, whatever they decide. But I'm excited, and I think it's going to work well. So what we are doing now, again, is aggressively networking. That means I'll be spending more time on the road. So the summertime is a good time for me to get out and talk to the communities. I want to meet all 24 and tell them the same story, to essentially thank you for your ongoing support. I think in time we'll get to the end state and fill that park. And I'm looking forward to doing other things, such as getting off the reservation. KRDA is a regional development authority, and I'd like to explore other ways to leverage what that authority can and cannot do. I think it's an awesome capability that could be doing a lot more. For example, I'm helping a small metal fabrication shop in China with training and certification, ISO certification, and finding new markets. And he's asked me to help a few more, to include one here in Oakland. So I'll be doing more of that kind of stuff, helping small companies grow, helping some of the larger ones grow too, I hope. But I'm just now, again, after 90 days, starting to feel my way, understand what we have here and what I can leverage. And I'm really excited about this opportunity. Monday, we closed on a house in Mount Vernon, and we intend to stay. This will be it for Brad, and I want my last 10, 15, 20 years here. So, that's where we are. That's where we're going. Any questions or concerns that I could address, please?
And do you have a strong working relationship with the organizations like the Valley Council of Governments, the Central Maine Growth Council, Chamber of Commerce?
Yes, I do. Very strongly with the Chamber and very strongly with the Central Maine Growth Council. I'm on the board of Central Maine Growth Council. I've been asked and raised my hand to participate in the Chamber's Business Retention and Expansion Committees. I participate in the KB COG meetings. Would like to get more involved as they're doing some new things in the agricultural development space that I'd like to leverage. There's a lot of activity going on that I think we can do more. Yep. In fact, I made it my point in the first 90 days to get out and not just meet the local players, but the statewide players. believe the business of economic development is all about leveraging capital, economic capital, political capital, and social capital. So to that end, you know, I also met everybody from Angus King's local rep, who in Augusta is to getting out to meet with the service organizations here. Because you need to pull everybody together. That corporate reception that we had for we got everybody out from, you know, the executive director for the Film Institute to several university and college representatives, the president's offices, to businesses, NGO board members, and all said the same story. That this is a great place to invest, to live, to work, to invest. Very effective.
Did another lot get sold up there recently, Brad? Didn't somebody mention
Lot
there was-
15 has been subdivided and sold. And
Just recently, right?
that was on the 7th of May. We have to close it. What is going to happen on that lot to be determined? There are two plans. One to put up a 30,000 square foot building, which has been approved by a 30,000 square foot building, which has been approved by DEP. And another process where there will be smaller 5,000 square foot buildings up to 5, also approved by DEP. And the market will dictate which way they go. They're going to be aggressively marketing both options. I've offered to the developer that we would love to link his drawings, his plans to our website to help promote. So yeah, and hopefully there'll be a second lot sale, you know.
How many lots are still available?
Good question. There are 24 lots, 7 of which are filled. About half of the available lots are serviced with infrastructure, and there's still a need to basically fit out the rest of the park. Road, water, sewer, conduits, etc. To determine how that's going to happen. What I intend to do right now is engage an architect, engineer, help us understand, give us a back of the envelope calculation as to what those costs would be. And look at what we have going forward for the next few years in terms of land sales and budget savings. Provide a source of funds to develop this.
Is the airport gonna be a tool for your use?
The airport having a designation as a foreign trade zone will be very beneficial. What Darrell Strone is doing with Central Maine Growth Council is rather unique in that foreign trade zone status will extend beyond the footprint of the airport. And so it will envelop First Park and a few other locations. Again, what a foreign trade zone does is allow companies that are going to assemble and reassemble components from overseas duty-free and other tax benefits. So if we wanted to land a manufacturer, an assembler, make parts from overseas, it'll be a very beneficial tool. It won't tax the people. So for example, a guy like Chimbro, when he's doing a job overseas, you know, it'll be beneficial for a company like that for a tax benefit. He's going to come here? No, I'm not saying he's coming here. But Chimbro is the type of company that's benefited from foreign trade zones, or could have benefited from foreign trade zones, because they deal with a lot of companies where they're actually assembling components from overseas and reassembling them somewhere in Maine and selling the product. So that's one potential beneficiary of a foreign trade zone. You know, that type of manufacturing assembly is what you can attract from a trade zone. Our lead that we brought to First Park a couple weeks ago would be a light manufacturer. Probably wouldn't benefit from foreign trade zone status because the components that he would be assembling would all be U.S. sourced. So it all depends on the type of lead. The enablers that I'm engaging to get in front of C-level decision makers will allow me to basically get in front of foreign companies, whether they be Canada, European, Latin American. And it's a pretty robust capability, fairly cheap budget. So I think it's going to be very cost effective to get out in front. I'm hoping to get in front of 30 decision makers over the next year. It doesn't sound like a lot, but when you consider time and travel, yeah, I got a lot of time.
So First Park is considered in that trade zone, or could be?
It could be. Again, it all depends on how far Central Maine Growth Council moves forward on that designation of trade zone status beyond the airport. And I'd have to bring Darryl Strong to the conversation to really describe that in detail. But he brought it up at the after hours presentation last week at the airport, that the zone would extend beyond the airport to the places outside of Waterville. Again, Darryl and I are working very closely together. I think we complement each other immensely. He's got some very extensive skill sets that I don't have. We're going to have to go very far.
It's good.
No more questions? Thank you for your time.
Well, again, thank you for giving me a few minutes just to introduce myself, say hello. As I said, this will not be the last time you see me. And if I don't hold up to that promise, follow me on it. But I hope to come out of here and, with the projects to move forward and continue the discussion. So thank you for your time.
Very good for your help. Very good for your help.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Item number 3, to discuss the newly enacted fireworks ordinance.
May I explain the item?
Please.
A fellow came in last week, I think, and with concerns about aspects of the ordinance that he had run across that were detrimental to his point of view. He recognized that the 9 p.m. End date for legal use of fireworks at certain times meant that he'd have to shoot what he had off before that. I wasn't in a position to give him any exemptions, neither was Bob Ellis, who issues the permits, and I offered him an opportunity to come and explain his concerns to the council, and he indicated that he would come and he'd like to have a place on the agenda, but he's not here. Yesterday there was another individual, a lady that came in, and she said that she had spent $1,000 on fireworks and came in to get a permit and found that she lives within a 1-mile radius of Memorial Hall and can't legally use what she's now bought. And because I thought we were going to have this conversation, I thought she might come in tonight. She thought she might as well, but she's not here. So the two that I thought were going to come and speak tonight are not present, so it may be that you want to carry on a conversation, or you may want to table the item until a future time.
Do you have more information about who Vern Carlo is? Does he have a special business or a campground?
He's a person that rents a place on one of the lakes in town.
Don?
I'm not recommending we make exceptions or not make exceptions, but just to clarify a couple of things. On the permits outside of those days, if somebody wants to set off fireworks on a day other than we've got listed, did we specify on that it was according to state law? Because there was some discussion that they theoretically could have gotten a permit based on state law for days other than what we had set aside as free days. Right. So in essence, a person could request a permit that would allow them to have fireworks till 10 o'clock. The only question is, would we be wanting to support that if they made a request for a permit on a day that is inclusive of our ordinance? So if somebody wanted to set off fireworks on July 2nd, which is within that time frame, they could theoretically request a permit for that day. I don't know. We've never discussed the possibility of somebody requesting a permit for days we've already allowed it, but they could theoretically get an extension to 10 o'clock if they do that. You look puzzled.
I just don't understand what you just told us.
Okay, so
looking at the ordinance, here it is, can you point out what you're?
well, it says here,
It's on page 2,
We'll
we
try
got,
and do what you'd like us to do.
well, I'm not sure if we'd like to do it, I'm just saying, is that a possibility? It says, special permits, a resident property owner may obtain a special permit at the town office during regular office hours to ignite fireworks on weekends, Friday to Friday, through at 5 PM to Sunday 5 PM as allowed by state law. So if there was a day on a weekend that they wanted to set off fireworks after the 9 o'clock that fell within the days that we had permitted it, this doesn't disallow that. But we never, talked about somebody getting a permit for a Friday night or a Saturday night so they could extend their hours.
Yeah, I guess my question is, I understood the purpose for an ordinance is to be more restrictive than the state law. So when you stipulated these times here, I interpreted that to mean that you were closing the window less than what the state law, and if that was your intention.
But I know there was some discussion about would they be allowed to set off fireworks after 9 o'clock, and we never really stipulated. I understand, and I'm not disagreeing with what you said.
Okay.
But I know we had some discussion about it, and I don't know if we ever said one way or the other whether that particular time frame would be held to the 9 o'clock or not. And I know part of the discussion, we came back to the state law, so the state law does say they can do it till 10 o'clock. So we'd be contradicting ourselves and saying you do it according to state law, but you can't do it according to state law because we've said something different. So, again, we never resolved it, but it's an issue, I was thinking if we wanted to do something, would that allow us to? And I'm not advocating that we do something, but I was wondering if that would be a potential quote-unquote loophole that we would support or not support. So again, I'm not advocating that we allow this, but I know that was a potential.
So basically, you're asking about 9 to 10 on the weekends that fall on the days that were allowed, like around the 4th of July.
Well, the ordinance allows people to request a permit anytime on any weekend
Right,
throughout the year
right.
if they're having a special occasion. And we said we were going to base that on state law. State law says you can have fireworks at 10 o'clock at night.
Yep, and we cut off at 9, right? And so basically, the time in question will be 9 to 10 PM on
Friday
the
or Sun-
weekends
on-
that we,
Not necessarily. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. Could a person ask for a permit to set off fireworks this weekend from 7 till 10? State law allows it. This says we're gonna go by state law. On another hand, in our ordinance, it says 9 o'clock's the deadline. So in that sense, we're contradicting ourselves intentionally or unintentionally. That's, again, personal opinion. I'm not sure, we haven't discussed this as a group. But that is something that could be a question. Which supersedes, our special permit or the page 1 body which cuts it off at 9? Because I'm throwing out, because I know we talked about it, but we didn't resolve it. We just said, let's do it by state law when we came with a special permit.
so it's for all weekends, not just the ones where it's, okay.
And I think from the committee's viewpoint, and Dana, you can pipe in here, one of the major reasons for the 9 o'clock cutoff was for parents of kids during the week who had kids going off the next morning to day camp, school, whatever. And it was getting too late, so the Friday to Sunday was really meant to allow people to do it on those days when there was a little less objection than during the week.
I work 12 hours on the weekends, so.
And that's the same thing, some people have hours that are not similar to everybody else's, so we're not really helping everybody, we're just
Yeah.
hitting a couple groups. And that was the tough time we had as a committee, was how do you balance everything out so that it sounds rational and doesn't overstep either way?
when Jan and I talked about somebody wanting a permit the other day, I didn't have this with me, but I was looking at it that the permit would have to stop at 9 o'clock too. But it does say by state law in here. So I guess you could interpret that either way.
And that's one of the things when we accepted this and we wrote it, we said there are gonna be some issues.
Right.
That during the course of this, we're going to have to work with, resolve, and make some amendments at some point if we feel they're needed. So this is one of those times when, put that in our, back of our brain and say, yeah, we're gonna have to address that now or in the future, and even if we don't allow it, we're gonna probably have to clean up that language a little bit.
So in reference to the two people that have asked for information or clarification on our fireworks ordinance, we want to table it until they decide they would like to come in. And I mean, it just,
Were there issues, Peter, do you remember, in general? One of them you said was within the 1 mile, that was the issue, right?
Yes, and the other person thought that 9 PM
Yeah.
was too early a time
Okay.
to end the allowed time.
Mhm.
Because he said he tried it and couldn't see him.
Yeah, well, that was a big, like Don said, that was a big part of the discussion during the committee was that, we had approximately 330 or something people that wanted no restrictions, and we had about that many that wanted them banned completely. And then we had 900 that wanted restrictions, so it was kind of a balancing thing here to,
That's what I told these
yeah,
individuals as best we could to try to explain it,
yeah.
why we have what we've got.
Right, so, and like Don says, we did expect there would be some problems with this at first, and we got the bugs ironed out of it, and people's concerns ironed out. But when you got that many people strictly opposed to them, and about the same number that wanted them anytime, there's gonna be a difference of opinion there about when you ought to do it. So, I guess,
Is the first time that the police come to see you and remind you of this ordinance still kind of like a freebie where they just gently remind you? And it's the second time where there's a fine
it
imposed?
says here, the first offense is a written warning, second offense, $200 fine, and I don't believe our police department gives a written warning for, I can't tell them how to do their business, and we're not supposed to, but I don't know if anybody's ever gotten a written warning from them. I haven't talked to the chief about it, and I don't,
I was thinking that these folks that wanted to set the fireworks off may very well do what they please and get their written warning now that their fireworks are gone, and it's the end of the issue for them anyway.
Right.
That's all I
Could be,
think is, what
and I'm not sure, we'd have to ask the chief if they would write a written warning for the first time, because there are still some people that really don't understand the ordinance, and I can't imagine they're gonna be writing too many written warnings the first time around until people understand it.
And that's gonna be our challenge. Peter has written and worked with the newspaper to develop a story to, at least people who read the newspaper will now know there is an ordinance. Most people in town don't know it. So we could have a lot of people setting them off in the next few weeks at all hours, and some the police will be able to talk to, and some they'll never find, because that's the way this issue is. The week after we approved this, on Fairfield Street, there was a massive display of fireworks by Colby College at one of the local establishments. And, you can't blame them too much, because 3 days earlier there was no ordinance. So how do we get the that's our challenge, is to try to get the word out, explain it to people, so at least they know that there's an ordinance.
Do we have a copy of the ordinance at the place that sells fireworks over in Winslow and the place over in Manchester that sells them? Could we give them copies so that residents could see them when they purchase?
yes, there are copies there.
Because I know I stopped and got some when they first got people over in Manchester, and they didn't really know much about any of the local ordinances.
Well, they really don't want to tell you too much about local ordinances, because dollars dictate direction.
Well, it's just the one outlet I thought of where I encountered some cloudiness around the issue.
I'd make a motion, we table this until some people wanna come in and discuss it with us.
I'll second.
All in favor? hot ticket item for the day, discuss the budget, if anything had come out of it today.
Yeah, we did have some news today, and if you hadn't heard, the legislature did vote to overturn the governor's veto. And so, thinking that that might be the case, we tried to prepare what that would mean to Oakland for our budget. And the budget that is now in effect, had the veto
That's one set
been
right there.
sustained, had the veto been
One
sustained,
third, I think.
we wouldn't have really known where we were. But the fact that there's 2 pages there, I'm sorry, Mike, I should have,
I was
there
looking
are
to
2
see what was
pages
what,
in the handout.
right there.
There's another
That's
set.
that. Thank you.
There's another set. How many more we need?
Oh, so- No, my fault. I was looking to see how many sets there were, so I'm sorry.
Do we need one more?
I think we made 10 seconds.
Sorry about that.
And to make a long story short, the comparison between what we now expect to receive in revenue sharing and what we had budgeted for revenue sharing is on the first sheet that we handed out. Doug was kind enough to prepare a couple of sheets so that we could talk about this tonight. And what today's action means is that we're looking at a projected shortfall in our budget from revenues of about $87,000. We had lowered the amount of revenue sharing in our budget. This number compares what we expect to receive with what we put in the budget. So the first sheet basically gives you the calculation. And the second sheet offers 3 methods at least. There may be more than 3. There may be ways to mix and match, but 3 ways to deal with the issue so that we're not starting the year with an automatic hole in our program. So the 3 options that we've outlined here for you, do you want to explain those, Doug, or would you like me to keep going?
Well, you're doing a fine job.
So far, if I don't, please signal. Some towns are looking at the possibility of offsetting the shortage with a mill rate increase in order to keep their program of paving intact, and that would represent a 17-cent increase to Oakland. And it would be wise to remember that regardless of what we do here, on the school side, we're looking at a 30-ish cent raise to the mill rate regardless. So that may or may not be something that's even worth serious consideration, but it's on the table. We could delete $87,000 worth of spending from what was approved at town meeting as another method of dealing with the challenge. And to give you some sort of a way to consider what that is, we've compared the cost of paving East Pond Road, which is budgeted for the number of tons that it will require, to be $62,000 now that we have a bid price from a low bidding contractor. And to not pave McGraw Pond Road, for example, to pick another one out of our schedule, the 2 that are closest to the amount we're talking about, those are the 2 roads we put down because one's a little under, one's a little over. Would be a $96,000 savings if we didn't overlay McGraw Pond Road. So to get one lump sum out of our budget, that's the easiest way to do it. It's also possible to nibble all across the budget and do more of what we did at budget time. I'm not sure how we could go, how far we could go before we stubbed our toes on something that we wish we hadn't done, but you know, as veterans of the budget process, how that is done and how it could be done. And the third option here is one that I really want to give Doug credit for suggesting. I think it's an interesting concept. And what we're offering for your consideration here is that we delay the funding of items that we intended to make provision for in the next budget system. And you'll recall that we intended to